Welcome, Preston King, our guest today on Inspired Onward. It's so good to see you, Preston.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. Preston, you are a husband, you're a father, you're a brother, you're a son, and you're a United States Marine.
That's right. Yeah, all of those
Thank you
things.
for your
Most
service. Yeah, thank you
thank
for
you.
your
Thank you.
service. Thank you for your service. Preston, we're happy to have you here today because as you know, you do a lot of work for us. You're, for all intents and purposes, our producer and editor. And you've heard a lot of stories that we've talked about, and we've shared with other guests. And you too know trials and triumphs in
Oh
life.
yeah.
You know what it is to go through tough times. You know what pain is all about. I don't have to sit here and explain pain to you at all. And it's interesting when a person listens to your story, just what you've been through, but then also how you found that stability in your life, in your world, with respect to a marriage, a family. Yeah, you're suggesting life wasn't easy,
Yeah.
but wasn't
Um,
always easy.
no, definitely not. There's always what's the terminology? Somebody always has a little bit harder out there, but everybody there's you might be able to help me with this. There is a thought process where you have this sudden realization and clarity that everybody in your life has just as an intricate life as you. So when you're passing somebody on the street, there's a you just have this clarity like, oh, this person's lived a full just as intricate as you. So I keep that in the back of my mind because I think we all deal with pain maybe in our own way, but everybody's been through some form for sure. I think maybe I chose some of it. The Marine Corps definitely doesn't go easy on you, so some of it is self-inflicted, I think, but
Some of it's self-inflicted, some of it's circumstance, right? Preston, I concur with you, and you've probably heard me say this multiple times, but we've got two adult sons. They're young adults now, and I ingrained in them at a young age, because of my profession, my background
sure,
is guys. I used to say to them, everybody has a story, so you be very, very careful before you start passing judgment because you have no clue what their story is, what they've been through, what they're currently going through, and to be real sensitive to people because exactly what you're saying, it's universal, and we all have a
100%.
story, and that's what's so rewarding with Inspired Onward is everybody has a story. So Preston, let's get into your story.
Let's
you
do it.
you grew up fatherless for all intents and purposes. Dad left when you were about 3 years old. Mom raised you and your sister, and you're the oldest of two. You have a younger sister.
Correct. That's right. Yep. Shout out to
Okay.
my sister out there. She actually does streaming and other stuff, so I won't use her government name just in case this clip goes out. I don't want her getting doxxed, but shout out to my sister.
Absolutely. You can use her call sign.
There you go.
She'll
Okay,
know,
her
she'll know
her
who
name's
you're
Miss
talking about.
Savage online. If anybody's watching and you guys want
Uh,
to check her out, she's online. So
you told me her call sign was Walking Tomahawk. So
yeah,
that must have changed since the last time you and I
it
talked.
changed a
She
little bit.
never
Yeah.
told me her call sign changed. Preston, tell me, so dad leaves when you're 3
Mhm.
and you're living in Virginia.
Correct. Yeah. So I'll give you kind of the cliff notes. So dad leaves at 3. Um, single mom. We were living in Virginia at the time, and during that time, we had like an average, typical lifestyle. My mom worked all day. We went to school. Back then, it was the '90s, so kids could get on the bus by themselves, get home from school by themselves, and definitely, I think one little note here is at a young age, I was young enough to still realize that I had to kind of step up a little bit. I think that's a pretty shared experience, especially with a lot of people I've talked to, a lot of friends I've talked to. They kind of have that where if dad leaves early, even if you're young, you kind of feel like there's this void that you almost kind of have to feel like you fill it. So the running joke, I guess, to say is we lived in Virginia. I grew up very fast there, even though we left when I was, I think, in third grade. My mom met somebody new, and we moved to Florida. So basically, my formative years from third grade until around 16, 17 was in Florida, in Jacksonville. Then there was when things got a little rocky. I had went to the same elementary school, went to the same middle school, kind of got into a groove of things. My mom was kind of in and out of jobs. She used to work for radio, and then she pivoted into real estate down there. So started doing pretty good for herself. And then I think things started coming around, coming out the scenes when, this is right before 2008. And then from there, really, at that point, just trying to bring it back to my dad, we were kind of having a pseudo relationship. My mom did the best she could to make sure that we went to see my dad. My dad didn't just leave; he moved to Nevada. He went to Las Vegas. Like, he left the entire eastern seaboard. Like, he gone. So when I say he's leaving, I mean he was not a hop, skip, and a jump away. I guess you could say it was a 6.5 hour plane ride to go see the guy.
And Preston, was your stepdad helping to raise you then?
Not really. And funny enough, and this is no shame to him. It was just he was actually 10 years younger than my mom. And a great guy. We're still friends today. Every time I go to Florida, he's still very much involved with our lives. We still interact all the time. Great guy, not a dad. Just no dad inclinations whatsoever. Love to work, love to have fun, love to go out. And that, their relationship ended up fizzling out. And, I think through natural causes, I think she still holds him dear in her heart. And there was like no love lost there. We've definitely remained friends, but from early on, I knew he's not a dad. So that was he set the pace very early on. Like, we're going to be friends. I'm not your dad. So, but going back to dad a little bit, just to give you some context. So as we were growing up, my mom did a very good job at trying to get us to go see my dad at Las Vegas as much as humanly possible. Obviously, he's very far away. So maybe a couple times a year, trying to keep into contact, and really trying to make sure he was in our lives as much as we possibly could, right? The downside was my dad was not receptive for that, and I would love to get into this a little bit more, but he ended up being, as I got older, learning that he was just an egotistical narcissist, like a true fashion, true fashion. And it all came to a boiling point later on, but that's kind of we'll stay on this topic for right now. While I was growing up, that was kind of the formative years. And then going back to 2008, when I was in middle school, end of middle school, I never heard the whole story, but we started having money problems and we started moving around a lot. So to give you an example, between the ages of 12 and 17, I had already went to 8 different schools and we had moved 9 different times. So I basically lived out of a box for a very long portion of time. The running joke was that my entire life was essentially in 3 cardboard boxes. We learned to live very frugally. We lived in different houses, rentals, townhouses, wherever we could. But my mom, to her credit, did a great job. She tried to keep us at least in the same area, so we're at the same school system, same friends. But then one big event that happened at that time was we finally, stopped renting. We stopped doing all that stuff. We're still single mom. Dad's kind of less and less in the picture. And we're, my mom buys this like really nice house, like 3-story. It was her dream home. She helped build it. She was a real estate agent at this place where she was like selling the homes. We lived in the same neighborhood. I could see her all the time. It's kind of far away from school, so it kind of felt a little isolating, but it was near the beach. So I could like walk to the beach. So for a kid, it's like, all right, we made it. Then 2008 happens. We lose the home. Home is gone. So then trouble and turmoil, we get right back into, like, we finally reach, we get out of the quagmire and then right back in it, out of our hands, So that was the formative years, and then that started leading into the troubles.
You were how old in at that time?
15. I think 14 and 15 is when we lost the house, and that's when things started going kind of off the rails a little bit.
Is that, Preston, when you started dabbling with drugs?
I actually started doing that at a younger age, probably like 12 or 13. I I think, and I've gone through this a lot in my life. When you are at that age and you have no male at that point, literally, I had a dad who wasn't there, and I had somebody who was in the house who wasn't a dad. I had to kind of figure things out by myself, and so I guess at a young age, I made friends with other people who were like me, fatherless, motherless, and we created like this pseudo family. You kind of like create this connection and pain almost. Where one of my best friends at the time, um, had a dad and a mom, but a very unstable relationship with both of them. So it allowed we naturally connected, but we handled it, and we handled that shared pain through drug use. And it started with drinking, and it started with smoking cigarettes, it started with weed, and that was it. And very much teenager angst, type of feel. There was no malicious intent to it. It wasn't until, years later where things started really going off the rails, where my friends started going down darker paths. And I was trepidatious. I didn't want to, the word of the day, trepidatious, right? Like, I didn't want to follow fully to where they were going, but these were people that I had shared bonds with. So it was hard to really get out of their orbit, I guess you could say. So yeah, I went through all of that, and then I guess another pivot point we could talk about. So 2008 happens, we lose the house, right? I've already been dabbling in drugs and all those things, but still just weed, drinking, smoking cigarettes, and occasionally, not like a everyday usage, not a addiction that I would say. I think it was just fun teen angst at parties when I was around these people, whatever, right? We lost the house. We stayed in the same area, and then we had to move schools a lot. So now I lost that group. That pillar was gone. And now I was at a new school again, with a brand new school, and this was not a good school. This was like, I was at a very nice school called Nice, and I went to the other school called St. Augustine, and it was like not good. Fighting, like it was like a prison. It was not fun. I think that's what led me to not do well at school. I didn't excel. I didn't even try to get into the groove at that school. I ended up going back to Nice again. So there's the first, shift back. At that point, my friends were getting into heavier things. I couldn't find my groove there. And I just started skipping school. I was like, I lost my step, is a good way to put it. Like, I was in a groove, and then everything got turned upside down. Our house was, unsecured. We were moving. We were all over the place. I think that caused me to shift. And then on top of that, no one to rely on, really. My mom was working all the time. I'm stepping up as the man in the house, even though there was a guy in the house, love him to death, but not a dad, he's working. And we're all trying to manage this like really terrible economy collapse while during this, eventful thing is happening. I'm also being jostled around. I'm all over the place. I'm thrown into new schools and new environments and new friend groups at like, I had made all my friends from third grade to 14. And then all of a sudden at 14, I got to jump ship. Like, what? So that leads to trying to get reconnected with this group. But now this group is heading into darker paths. They're starting to do cocaine. They're doing heavier drugs. They are 100% not going to school anymore. They are getting, their girlfriend's pregnant. Like, they are going down a dark path, So yeah, I think, to me, my mom saw that coming from a mile away, and I ended up getting shipped off. So another school change. I get shipped off back to Virginia. I go to the school called Miller, and it's a boarding school. My family's now down in Florida, and now I'm 100% isolated. No way
And
out.
Preston, you're how old at this time?
Uh, 15 at
15.
this time,
In
almost
10th
16.
grade?
It would be ninth grade.
Ninth grade. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I should have been a higher grade up, but unfortunately, through all the skipping, I had to, was not on a good path. All right, I had to catch up, so I was on a good path.
So at 15, you find yourself in boarding school in Virginia.
Yeah, family still lives in Florida, and I'm alone in Virginia by myself. The only people that are up here were my grandparents, who we really didn't have much contact with. And you know, it was one of those things where I think that set a new mindset for me. I couldn't use drugs, which was fine at that point. Again, I didn't think of it as an addiction. It was more like coping and social. So I didn't have any withdrawals or any problems. I wasn't using any hard drugs or anything at that time. So when that happened, I think that isolation did something to me, though. Like, my personality changed. I did make friends, right? And I even had friends. I went to one of my friends from that school. I went to their wedding recently. And so it wasn't as if it was bad. I think what really mentally that I had to work on later in life through therapy was that you have this life event that happens. You have this terrible thing that occurs. And the first thing that your family does is ship you to a different state, alone, isolated, where you only get to see them for holidays. Yeah, it's rough. You know, it was one of those things. I think that, I mean, at that time, looking back, even though I excelled much more at school and class, I liked the structure, which we can touch on later, how that relates to the Marine Corps. But I think portion of myself that used to be that fun-loving kind of like loosey-goosey kind of guy turned out to be not wanted, is a good way to put it. Like this deep pain of like, dad left and now I'm gone. I'm alone on the island over here, right?
Did you
I
feel
didn't
bad?
know it. Oh yeah. Oh man. I completely changed. And I think I even exemplified this by, like, I used to have a lot longer hair. I shaved my head. I started trying to dress. I almost like masked is a good way of putting it. You deal with this. I also deal with ADHD. So I masked very hard. What did these people want from me? How do I conform to be the best student they can? Because the other side of this too is this pressure as a kid of like, well, I can't let my mom down. She's already going through enough pain. Let me share some of that burden. So I just took it on myself. And again, I think from their side, they're like, we see you going down a dark path. We don't want you to be like your friends. Let's get you out of here. So I think logically you understand where the pain comes from, but I don't think when you're a kid, you can connect those dots. It's not till later you can connect those dots because you're a kid. You're not really thinking about the implications or the reasoning. You're just feeling the fact that you got thrown into something you didn't want to do in the first place, and on top of that is against your will. Like, that's not a fun place to be. But I masked and I
at that
pivoted
time,
quickly.
your development is also limited. I mean, you're only 15 years of age, right? So we look at human growth and development. You only have so much development under your belt at that point,
Yeah.
emotional maturity, etc. So you feel angry, you feel abandoned, you feel rejected. I'm assuming you feel lonely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing to know about me is I think growing up in such an unstable environment, you learn to depend on yourself very early on. And I think this helped. And I've always been very inquisitive. When it comes to grades, my wife hates this, but I'm one of those people where I can read something once and remember it forever. I was an excellent test taker, excellent at school, and because I have a very inquisitive mind, I like learning. So I've always been a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of brain power. The problem with that is that I can understand the logic and then choose not to do something because I know what the implications are. So I learned how to work the system. It made me very much a shapeshifter, I guess you could say. But going back to your point is that I think that logical side I leaned into heavily, so I suppressed a lot of the emotion. And it took me a lot. I went to therapy after the Marine Corps, and that's one of the things that really we dove into during for like 4 years was that I forgot how to learn how to feel what I was feeling because I would just logic it away, right? Oh, this is happening because of this. There's no feelings attached to it. This is what it is. Black and white, deal with it. No gray area, move on. And that suppression ended up causing, I think this is where, when I got out of Miller, back to the story, this is where things kind of went really off the rails because again, another benefit of Miller is that I really got into lifting. A lot of physical activity. I'd never pushed myself physically before in that kind of sense, other than when I played football. But this was a chance where I was lifting 6 days a week to take out aggression. And so I was cleanly shaven head. I look like somebody out of a bodybuilding movie, and I'm about to go, I get out of Miller, and my family actually moves back up to Virginia because my sister starts having problems. So we just leave the area, and they move back up to Virginia. So now we're together. I'm out of Miller. I'm looking better than I ever have. I've got a new mindset. I've got this like new way of thinking. I've got this more regimented feel of things.
And you're
But
how
now
old, Preston, at this time?
I'm
18?
home. No, I was only at Miller for a year. So I was only there for 2 semesters. And then we go to the new school. So I go to this school called Trinity, which is a private school. And I get kicked out in the first 2 weeks. So here I am, at Miller, a student lifting 5-6 times a week, like exemplary. But again, logicking away all the emotion for an entire year at the age of, I think I was 16 when I left. So I'm 16 going to another new school again, new house, new environment, new group. I thought I was top dog because I was stronger, better, faster, more mentally. This is what was going through my mind, but all of that was a mask over the fact that I had all these emotions, all these things that were just never for years, not even felt. And I think when I went to Trinity, I played football, and I was one of the top people, like immediately one of the top people, which is a good feeling from like a manly, like, this is awesome. Like I'm on the varsity team week 1. But the pent up anger just exploded out. I ended up hurting another kid. Unfortunately, that kid was the son of the coach, and they didn't look kindly on that. So and off to another school. I go to a public school called James River, and go to James River, same thing. Another new school, another more repressed energy, more changes, more things. At this point, I'm used to not having a core friendship group. I'm used to not having a core place. I in the back of my mind know even where we're living right now is not, it's finite. It's not going to last. So no solid footing. So I'm at this point in just pure survival mode. But I go to James River, and I find new friends. I find new groups. I do okay at school, but I quickly realized that I just don't care for school. I at that point I had been through 4 different high schools. Why is this going to be any different? So I ended up dropping out, and I get a GED. So at the age of 18, I was supposed to finish junior year. I just leave, and I go to get my GED immediately.
Preston, what was the emotion that you were feeling? So you've got up anger. I'm assuming there's some rage. You've got to feel confused as why dad's not around, what happened, why dad's not an integral part of your life. You're changing states, you're changing schools, the dynamic is constantly shifting, you're in survival mode, you're trying to survive the chaos.
Yep.
What emotion were you feeling at this time?
I think confusion, and a good way to put this, I've dove into this a little bit. So a good way to put this is like whiplash, right, is a good way of thinking about it. But emotionally, I think at that time, I just couldn't process anything. I think it took me years to figure this out, but I just repressed so much that only things that slipped out were rage. But like, for example, you probably heard this, obviously you've heard this before, but I was in such survival mode from such a young age. And this is even before, like when we moved to Florida, dad not there, all of the issues with that. I barely remember my childhood because a lot of that trauma I learned later is caused. So I don't remember a lot of my childhood. I think during that survival time, I can look back and know the highlights, but it's hard for me to even remember how I felt because I think I was just trying to make it one day at a time. And I think the only thing that stood out was the rage, but really it was because I just logicked away everything. A good way of putting it, I always put the needs of my sister and my mom first. And I always leaned on them as like, if those two are okay, I can deal with anything. And I think I just repressed everything as much as possible. And the only thing that came out was the rage. You know, like it's not good to hit somebody at football with a helmet and get kicked out of school. For me, I was like, I'm out of school, on to the next one. My mom was furious, but I'm not feeling anything. I'm just like, that guy had it coming, on to the next one. You know?
Awesome. Did you ever have thoughts or feelings during that time where so you're talking about as long as my sister was okay, mom was okay, I was okay. Having an absent father, did you ever have thoughts to yourself where it was, well, what about me? Who's going to take care of me? Who's going to protect me? Who's going to love me? Who's going to listen to me? Who's going to advise me? Who will mentor me? Who will protect me? Did you ever have those thoughts?
I think I did when I was a kid, like younger, much younger. I would say 7, 8. When you start noticing when you're at football games and your dad's not there and dads are running they're the coaches and they're like, oh, that's kind of cool. That must be nice. Or you go to friends' houses and they've got their dad and like, oh, me and my dad are going to go camping. I'm like, it started like, ugh, like you start feeling it a little bit at that point. And I think anytime I had those feelings, I would lean into the fact of like, no, I'm the man of this house right now. I'm having to pivot in. I would pick up side jobs. I remember I used to like, even when I was a kid, I would like mow yards and give my cash to my mom. I would pick up dinner. Hey mom, I've got money for McDonald's. Like we're gonna go to McDonald's tonight. I know you had a long day. I'd watch my sister. I almost said her first name. Sorry, almost said it. But I would be like, I take care of her. You go out, have friends, your friends. I think my mom was also in survival mode. So we're just like these two cohabitating, like survival mode people, both trying to like help my sister have as normal of a life as possible. And I just got the logic. I just got the short end of the stick in this deal. So it never, I think early on it did, but then it just very quickly said, hey, this is not reality. This is your reality. You're here. You gotta just keep going, man. I mean, it's all you can do.
So, Preston, you survived the chaos by intellectualizing everything.
Everything. Oh yeah. I've always been that way. That's also, I've struggled with this in therapy too, because I've always been analytical, even at a young age. And there's like video proof of me on like a VHS. For anybody who doesn't know what VHS is, like a VHS recorder of me like putting together puzzles at a very young age, walking at a very young age, interacting at a very young age. Like I've always been analytical and inquisitive. I think that has been a blessing and a curse, because then early on I could see, they say with ADHD and people who are on the spectrum, pattern recognition. Very good at pattern recognition, and ironclad memory when it comes to reading something is a great tool to have when you apply it correctly. It's a terrible tool to have when you start to see the patterns and then you put yourself in the pattern to make sure you don't cause any undue problems, or you make yourself as small as humanly possible because you know where this kind of leads,
How was your relationship with your sister when you were
Great.
growing up?
Great.
Okay.
Oh, love my sister. No,
Got along well.
we were very close. I think we shared pain, really. She was going through the same thing, and we talked later in life that, when we could start really talking, but we were on very different paths, very, obviously teenage years. We're probably at each other's throats a little bit more than we should, but I think we had a much closer relationship than other people in our friend groups who had sisters or brothers, because we had to rely on each other way more than other siblings had to. So I think that helped a lot.
How bad did the maladaptive behavior get? Drug use, drinking, fighting. I don't know if there was theft involved in this, but when you're a survivor.
So fighting was the big one for me. And it got to, I was always mostly drinking. So I'll have a small story. Okay. So after I get the GED, right? And now I'm close to, I'm like 17 and a half, almost 18, right? Around this time. Again, some of this stuff is a little blurry because timelines and memories are a little wonky. So around that time, I had a friend group up here in Virginia that was also not on the right path. They were smoking weed every day, drinking all the time, playing beer pong, just living the party life, really, So when I got out of Miller and I was going to James River, I kind of fell back in with this group and I hung out with them, and that kind of stuff happened. Then I think something clicked where I had this moment where I felt like I was compelled to go back to Florida. You know, all my friends were back there. I hadn't seen them at that point in years, but so I went back to Florida. I fell in with a group, and with a guy, unfortunately, who passed away from drug overdose. But at the time, I moved in with this guy in a really small apartment in Jack's Beach, and which was great. It was awesome. I will say, location was great. 2 blocks away from the beach, you could walk there. I would skimboard all the time. Awesome. Bad news is we were doing cocaine every night. Every night. And this is where things got, I would say, for 6 months, like I had lost, remember I left like bulky and I had lost like 60 pounds and I had gotten completely off the rails, where in the beginning it was just drinking and smoking, which I had been used to because I was doing that in Virginia. I'm like, no problem. But then they introduced cocaine, tried a couple times, and it just all of a sudden, you look back 3 months later, you're like, I'm doing this every day. Like, I wasn't able to hold a job. I was just thinking about it. I was going to bed at like 4 a.m. I was waking up at 8 a.m. And then we're out trying to make money to go buy another 8-ball as a group of these people.
Preston, that was going to be my question, is how does a 17-and-a-half-year-old kid afford a cocaine habit?
I mean, back then it was just, luckily the inflation rate wasn't so terrible, but dishwashing, and doing odd jobs around the good news, bad news actually, but the good news about where I lived back then, Jack's Beach was a very small beach town. So there was always odds and ends jobs. There's always odds and ends stuff to do, thick stuff. I'm very, again, intellectual. I'm adaptive to anywhere. Need a dishwasher? I'm going to go dishwash. I need whatever was needed. Server, art. I did some under the table bartending at a pool hall for a little bit. So never got into theft, but I was able to make it work. But the other thing too, it wasn't me just buying it. It was like it was like this collective group. It was me, the other guy named Sean, the guy named Danny, the other guy named Jake, and like 2 of these other girls. I can't remember off the top of my head, but we all pitch in, and I think it was like $130. So it was like $135 a day. But if you pitch in together and everybody shares, much cheaper. So everybody would get together every night. We go pick it up, and it was like crazy.
You've touched on this, but I just want to be clear on this. What would you say the impact of not having a father had on your life?
Ooh, I think the number one thing I walk away with, even I'm 36, so the thing I walk away with now is there was no, what's the best term? There was no model to model anything out of. There was no path that you could potentially take. There was no comparison you could really make. There was no right, this is wrong, this is right, this is the way you should do it, this is how I did it. It was a void. So the path was completely laid out. Like, imagine growing up as a kid with no role models, right? Because you're just like, it's freeing in one sense because you can charge your own path. But if you're in this listless, repressed state of survival, you're not thinking about the next year or the next path. You're thinking about the next day. So I think that had a terrible impact when I was a kid. But also, even to this day, still brings me fears. Like, I have 2 kids. I don't know if I'm doing it right sometimes. I am trying my best to be as conscious as possible and making the right decisions on purpose because I never had it laid out. I don't know what a 3-year-old girl or 1-year-old son is supposed to have. I just do the best I can. And I make sure I'm intent on doing that because there was no path laid out. Right. So I'm trying to like now make the path for my own kids, but I still don't have any roadmap. I think most parents who are parents really kind of, you still figure it out as you go, but there's nothing to model it on. So I think it still I think the biggest thing if you grow up fatherless or motherless or parentless in any sense is that the path you were supposed to have is completely different than your friends' paths who do have those influences because the micro touches, the micro influences there, like I find my kids watching what I'm doing and emulating, and I never had any emulation. I had to just figure it out, right? And I think it served me well later on, but when you're growing up in that, it's detrimental, completely detrimental, debilitating.
Absolutely to your development.
Yeah, development.
Absolutely.
Your how you build relationships, how you interact with others, what's socially acceptable, what's not, what the expectations are not there. I mean, even just the basic boundaries are just not non-existent. The whole world is just blank slate. Like you're just going through it.
And Preston, it impacts the relationship that you have with yourself.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It's far reaching. It's far reaching not having an active father in your life. And the consequences are crushing
Oh,
oftentimes. And
absolutely.
it takes conscious intentionality to change paths and develop
Oh yeah.
yourself to become a contributing member of society. How bad did the drug addiction get?
For me, it was very minor in term, and luckily, so I compare this to my friends who I had two friends who died of overdose. So when I say I had it the easiest, I didn't die of overdose. I never went to therapy. I never went to rehab. I was doing I was actually your past guest talking about this. We call it down here freebasing. That's as far as I went. I think that was that was like a light bulb moment of like, oh no, I've gone too far off the path, right?
Can you explain freebasing to the audience?
Yeah, so when you have cocaine, you're usually snorting it. That's like you see that all in the movies and stuff. What they don't tell you is like one step away from crack is when you literally take tinfoil and you heat up and you smoke the cocaine. It's called freebasing because it's not in a pipe or anything. So I did that one or two times, and after that, I was like, "What am I doing with my life?" It was like this is not what I want to be doing, you know? And it was like a look in the mirror moment of like, I had lost weight. I'm not talking to my family. I've lost contact. I'm like in Jack's Beach in Florida at whatever age. Like life has gone off the rails. I think that was when I was like, all right, I got to get out of there. But being logical and being very pigheaded in Survivor, I literally just packed my stuff and I just drove back to Virginia. Like I didn't even say anything. I knew I had to it was like get the hell out moment. So I packed my stuff. I got in the car. I think my car broke down in Georgia. I had to like get it fixed. And then I drove all the way back to Virginia, which for viewers and listeners from Jacksonville to Virginia, where I live, is a 9-hour trip. But if your car breaks down, you're sleeping in. Anything I could do to get the hell out. And then I recovered from that addiction all on my own. I didn't tell my mom about it. I didn't tell my friends about it. I just showed back up and I just dealt with it. And so 100% cold turkey, just handled it.
That must have been rough. That must have been really rough.
But at that time though, I was used to it. Like I was used to surviving on your own. Like you got pain, you deal with it by yourself. You got a problem, you deal with it by yourself. Like I was just used to. At that time, I was 17, I think. Yeah, 17. I know I was 17. I was 17. At that time, my mom was working full time. My sister was like, finishing up high school, doing her thing. I was not working, or at least I was moving back up to Virginia. So I didn't have a job. I just had to handle it.
Unpack it for the audience. How did you find yourself in the Marine Corps?
Oh, okay. So I get back into Virginia. And I joined the Marine Corps at 19. So there's this 1 year of kind of like reigniting and figuring out what I wanted to do. Right. I had my GED. I was 17. Again, we move again. My mom meets a new guy, and that she ends up getting married to. But I'm now living in this really funny town called Goochland County. And in this town, I'm living in my grandparents' old house. We're renting it out, right? But I'm alone. I'm just there by myself. I have my same friends that I had left before. We're just doing drinking, beer pong, smoking cigarettes, hanging out, like just being. None of them had known I had dealt with this, cocaine addiction. So, luckily this is very tame compared to that. So for me, it was like my addiction remedy is like, as long as I'm not doing that, everything else is fine. Like this is the bound. This is the safe zone. Anyway, so I'm playing with all of them, and then I get the same thing. So this is this gut feeling, the same thing that happened to Miller. I'm feeling isolated. My mom was with a new guy at a different house. My sister's living on her own at this time. She had just turned, I'm 18 now. She's 17 and a half. She's living on her own with her roommates. And here I am, barely can hold a job, GED, partying all the time. I'm just like, it flashed back to like, I'm just not doing anything with my life. I'm not going anywhere. I had tried going to community college. I just couldn't get into college life. I just was, again, listless. And I think there was there's this moment where I was like, you know what? I'm going to do something crazy. I am going to go join the Marine Corps. I just out of the blue, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go do something crazy. And just like the cocaine addiction, literally I walk into the recruiter's office. I was like, get me on the first bus. And I literally within 2 weeks I was in the Marine Corps. No joke. I was one of those guys. I was like, get me on a bus. I'm going. I had no clue about the Marine Corps. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't see any of the videos. I didn't read anything.
Preston, where was your MEP station? Right there in
Richmond, Virginia, right over here. So I did MEPS. And it's funny too, is like, usually recruitment down here with the Marine Corps, and as you are probably well aware, it's similar, is you go there, you get, you MEP'd in, you kind of are with the recruiters for a while, you do like the PT, you kind of do, your initial physical eval, and then you're there like waiting on your bus, right? That's what all the people were. I was not like that. I would just walked in, I was like, get me on I don't care what MOS it is, get me on the bus.
Did you not did you not take the ASVAB test as well at MEPS?
That's what the ASVAB. I clearly, I mean, I could have done anything in the Marine Corps, honestly. Again, great test taker. I read like the pamphlet, like on the way there. I was like, yep. And then like took the test, aced it. And I was like, they're like, oh, you could probably wait 6 months for this job, which I think was like Intel. Or there's artillery here, and you can leave tomorrow. I was like, that one.
And so they ship you off to boot camp.
Yep. Like literally I was there. I think I got MEP'd in, and then 4 days later, I think I was on the bus and I was going down to Parris Island, South Carolina.
Parris Island. Okay.
I mean, what kind of crazy person jumps in the Marine Corps without even knowing where the boot camp was? Like I knew nothing.
Preston King does that.
Yeah, apparently.
Preston King. So Preston, so you get in the Marine Corps, you're field artillery, you have a 6-year career in the Marine Corps. You're enjoying it. It's tailor-made for you.
Yep.
You're loving being a Marine. You're enjoying it, camaraderie, friends, stability, predictability. What happens?
Just as fast as I got in, I also got out, unfortunately, just as fast. So, I never saw combat. Just to let everybody know, I know there's always a distinction there, right? So never saw combat, but we did a training to go to Japan for 8 months, right? Luckily during that time, I met a very wonderful lady who Okinawa. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. It was fun. We did, they call it a DEP, right? So there was a fun little jaunt to another country. It was great. We shot artillery over there on Mount Fuji. We can jump into some of the fun stuff, but basically what happened is we go there. I don't know what happened. So whether it was a reaction to some of the vaccinations they gave me, the stress combination of the 2 or the 3, whatever it was, I get back from Okinawa, and luckily I was with my now wife, and I started having terrible IBS. I started having polyps in my gut. I started having this thing called urticaria, which is I had chronic idiopathic urticaria, so my skin was breaking out into hives. And in the Marine Corps, if you can't fight and you can't go to the field, you're not staying in. It's that simple. They're very strict, and like they will give you an NJP. For those who don't know, like non-judicial punishment, they will give you an NJP if you break your trigger finger because you're breaking government property. That's how serious they take it. Like you can't go to the field, you can't fight, you're getting out. So that's what, unfortunately, like I got back, and maybe 3 or 4 months later after we return, all these things start happening simultaneously. The stomach problems, the gut problems, the skin rashes, my eyes would get bloodshot. It was like this crazy reaction. And they're like, well, can't fight, let's get you out. And literally within like a month and a half, I went to the VA a bunch, documented everything, and they're like, see you later, sayonara. And I was out. And it was that fast. Crazy.
And your last duty station was where?
Richmond, Virginia. It was right where I was at.
Okay. So you get out of the Marine Corps, you still have all this pain, you're still surviving. You're one of America's finest.
Hmm.
What did you do with all this pain, Austin or Preston?
I think I just redirected it. At the time, luckily I ended up at a reserve unit, and I met a ton of great friends. A lot of my friends, I even bumped into a person that I went to boot camp with. He's still my friend to this day, and we live nearby. But during that time, I'm dealing with all these medical issues. It's hard for me to every day is a coin toss, excuse me, if I'm going to have, hives or not, and be functioning. So I just started just heavily trying to find a job. So me and my friends, we found a job at this place called H Gregg. We sold electronics, but I just redirected to always being busy. I just stayed as busy as I possibly could all the time. I was just trying to find a job. I was trying to get my degree. I basically got out, and I just went really hard onto everything. Instead of doing a 4-year degree program, I did a 2.5 degree program. I was working 80 hours a week. I was doing a degree. I had a project due every Sunday, and I was working full time, and I was just going after it. I think that I was scared to lose the momentum. Like, yeah, I'm sick. Yeah, I'm broken, but I'm still a Marine. Like, I'm just going to keep pushing. And I just kept going, and I had been used to survival mode. This is not, at that time, this is not new. I'm just going back. Like, the Marine Corps was awesome. I would love to stay in, but now I'm out. Guess what? Time to survive again. Let's go, go, go. But now with a new mindset, a new way of doing things, thinking about things. And one thing that I would love to put into this podcast to talk about is the mindset shift from not only just the military, but the Marine Corps specifically. The Marine Corps is very much you push your boundaries more than you ever have. You push your physical boundaries, your mental capabilities, the stress that you could actually handle. And for people who are out there is like, hey, I have a stressful job. Hey, I do physically demanding stuff. I would challenge you to do anything the Marines will train you, even just in basic training, but just when you're in the fleet in general. I mean, staying up for 36 hours. Do you know if you can do that? Your Marine Corps will tell you, and you will find that out very quickly. Like, can you lift this heavy thing for 10 miles? Guess what? You have to do it. So you're gonna do it, A fun story is in the Marine Corps to share here, just to give you an example, is looking back, I can't believe I used to do this, but I used to get put onto this ammo crew. And so for anybody who doesn't know, artillery shells are about this big, and they're 110 pounds. And so you go to the ammo depot and you pick up pallets of these things, and you're literally cranking these and throwing them down to people to go shoot on the artillery line. I was doing every field op. Like, we could do 1,000 rounds of this, and I'm physically with a team of 2 other people throwing ammo to gun crews all day, every day. So, if you think you can lift thousands of pounds a day, join the Marine Corps. There's a advertisement for you. You want to have a really bad back by like 26? Join the Marine Corps. But you don't. I think when you leave the Marine Corps, you leave the service, and you're put into these situations where you're really just having to, like, there's no option. You have to do this, but you become mentally tougher, physically tougher. You know your boundaries. You can do things. You can do things you didn't used to be able, you couldn't do. Your brain can go further. You can stay up longer. And it does give you a motivation of like, oh yeah, I can do a lot. Like, human beings are really capable of doing a whole lot. Even if you have pain in being inflicted on you, it does push you to understand at least your boundaries in a good way.
Absolutely. You really grew. You have no choice, but you're going to grow when you're in the
Yeah.
military. It was the same for me when I served in the Army. Preston, at what point does everything catch up to you where you say, this is not sustainable? I'm going to seek professional help. I'm going to start to understand myself. I'm going to start to understand my background. I'm going to start to understand my pain. I'm going to process this and get some closure to some of these things.
I think it was my wife and I. We've been married almost 12 years now in December, and it was around 5. Oh, thank you. Around 5 years ago, we were thinking about having kids. We hadn't had kids yet at the time, and I just, there was this urge of just trying to. It was like this yearning of like something's not right. I'm too quick to be on the gun. I'm not able to share correctly. I'm not able to communicate like I want to. So it started with that. Like I'm struggling with a lot of depression. That was one big thing. I didn't know where the depression was coming from. I just knew I was, for some reason, I'm working hard. I'm running my own business. I'm tired all the time. I'm not able to connect with my wife correctly. I'm feeling just incredibly down, and I everything felt muted, and I was like, I got to figure out what's going on. Like, why is this the case? And it was, lo and behold, long story short, after a couple of years, you have that aha click moment, and that click moment for me was that it was a multitude of things. I basically just had chronic PTSD from being a kid, and in the Marine Corps, I suppressed all these emotions for such a long time. And the Marine Corps does nothing but suppress because they only want output. They don't give a shit about, excuse my French, they don't care about your emotions. You got a job to do. Whatever. So the suppression and then the compression of those suppressed emotions just made this into this tight-knit ball. And then after things slow down, after I have a job and we have a house and we're building this family, I'm still depressed. I should be happier than I've ever been. Why am I've made it to the summit. But I think after the Marine Corps and how I've lived my whole life, there's always this want for more. Like, here's a great quote. This will be a great quote. And I heard this a long time ago. You are doing the thing that you said was going to make you happy. And that resonated with me a lot because I love setting goals. And I had just gotten to a point where I was always setting goals and always achieving them, but there was no goal that made me happy anymore, no matter what it was. I could have made $1 billion and still would feel empty. And I think that really triggered something in my brain to, again, I'm an action taker. I'm like, nope, let's go find therapy. Like, I'm feeling this way. I can't live this way. I can't do this.
When we look at life, we look at decisions, we look at when we come to forks in the road, everything in life comes down to one loaded question. The question is why. We have to know the why, and it has to be birthed out of conviction in order for us to make changes
Yeah.
precisely. And so my question to you, Preston, is what was your why? Why did you want to get healthy? Why did you want to bring closure? Why did you want to understand this? Why did you want to do the work? Because you knew it was going to be painful. You knew they were going to be difficult conversations. You knew it was going to require honesty.
Yeah.
What was Preston King's why?
The motivation to not be like my dad. That was a big motivator. And also, when you grow up in a fatherless environment, and especially with us in my life, he was just a egotistical narcissist, as like a true definition of a narcissist. And so when you finally have that aha moment of like, oh, this guy's a narcissist, I will not do any. I am like anti that. I am anti narcissist, but it makes you really take a fine grained, tooth comb across your life, I guess you could say, to say, you start thinking about everything that you're doing and trying your best to like be the best version of yourself so you don't turn into that thing. So if my dad gave me anything in life, it's how not to be. Like, that was the one parting gift. You gave me one path, and that path is to be the exact opposite of what you stand for. That how he interacted and how he treated his children and how he interacted with his kids and how he built relationships. And I knew I didn't want any of that. And I also knew if Megan and I wanted to start a family, I cannot be this depressed, just survival mode person forever. I had to find some kind of closure or way of living that wasn't survival. I had known nothing but survival until I was 30. So, and I had barely remembered my entire life until really the Marine Corps. And then it's like the lights came on, it feels like. And now here I am feeling more depressed than ever. Even when I was doing drugs, I wasn't this depressed. Like, that's a crazy feeling too. So it's a mixture of all of those trigger points, I guess, all compounding until I decided to like, oh, I can't fix this myself. I've got to go get some help.
I'm asking out of curiosity, do you have a relationship with your dad today?
No, unfortunately, we've been no contact for now 6 years. Two things. So my dad remarried and had another kid. And I think one thing that my sister and I have both talked about this, so I won't repeat anything, but that she wouldn't say. But we have, I wouldn't say a resentment towards our stepsister by any means, but we resent my dad for the way he treated my stepsister. All the things that my sister wanted from a father to a daughter, he gives to our stepsister, our half sister, excuse me, stepsister, half sister, and everything. I think that made me angrier. And then the big pivot point was that during COVID, my sister was getting married, and it was a destination wedding. And for months, my dad said, I will be there. I will be there. I will be there no matter what. Even though height of COVID was actually starting to simmer down a little bit. And a week prior, cancels, says I'm not coming. And I blow up on him. It was like years of aggression towards this guy. And I like everything you've ever wanted to say to your dad, I said in a 30-minute conversation. I dropped a nuke on him. Like, no. What I learned very quickly is like, you have the capacity to be a good dad because you do that every day with our half sister, and you can't do this one thing to be at your own your first daughter's wedding. That grew. I was a Marine at that time. I laid into him. I went, it was bad. So after that, my sister and I just were like, we saw the true colors. There was nothing that was going to change this guy. He was dead set on doing everything possible to not be in our lives, even if we were trying to force it and give him every opportunity. So we just stopped giving him opportunities, and we haven't talked to him since. And he's never tried to reach out again. It's just, I don't even know how and I have a son and a daughter. I don't know how he could do that. You probably know the same thing. Like, could you imagine just not being in your kid's life at all, or caring to try to be like, ugh.
No. And to put it into perspective, Preston, there's three types of wounds that we experience. There's a general wound, a moral wound, and then there's a primal wound. And the type of wound you're talking about with respect to not your father not being active in your life, not showing up to your sister's wedding, the rejection, etc. That's a primal wound. It's the single deepest wound that we can ever experience in this lifetime. And quite frankly, I think that the pain and the anguish is so deep that the best way, you can be the best wordsmith in the world, but you could never do an adequate job at describing it other than to say it's a deep, deep ache.
Yes.
The
Yes.
best justice you can do to it. It's undescribable. But I'll tell you what's really impressive is a guy once told me. I heard a speaker say one time, Preston. It coincides with your story. Is he said that healing is when you stop telling the story that broke you and you start
Mm.
living the story that rebuilt you. And that's what's so
Mm.
inspiring about your story is you have an incredible story, not only of strength, but of resiliency, of honesty, of integrity that for all intents and purposes has rebuilt you.
100%. Yeah, I would 100% agree with that statement.
It's exciting, Preston. It's very exciting to hear your story. So take us forward, Preston. So you go through 4 years of therapy. You unearth this. You look at it. You examine it. You for all intents and purposes, you go deep with this stuff.
Oh yeah.
You start to find the answers that you were looking for. Things start to make more sense. You start to stop being so cerebral about things, and emotion comes into play. You're able to process and reconcile some of these emotions.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And then it's how long into therapy before you start to feel relief from the depression?
Probably about 3 years. So I was dealing with it for a while. We were making progress, but when you, as my therapist would say, is sometimes we would be in therapy sessions and just hitting the same wall over and over and over again. And it's mainly because and again, he's never told me my full diagnosis, and I never asked, but he has alluded to the fact that I had chronic PTSD growing up. And so when you have that, it's just the same wound was cut so many times. That scar is just there. I got stuck in a loop where I'm depressed because I'm sad. I'm sad because of this issue. I know the issue. Why can't I get past it? So that makes me more sad. And it's just this vicious cycle over what he would call rumination. I was ruminating. That was the word he used. I was just ruminating in and the problem is I'm a logical person. So I was just trying to logic my way out of this and trying to, like, I know the problems. I see the issues. I'm open to talking about all these problems. Why can't I just can't let it go or just let it pass. And the one thing that he told me that kind of was like helped me to get through it and start feeling emotions again and dealing this and processing this was that imagine it like the ocean. You're at the edge of the water. The water goes past your feet and it always goes back. You have to treat your emotions as these waves. These waves are always, you can't change the tide. It's going to happen, but you have to just let it also recede and know that it's going to recede. I had a trust. At the end of the day, I had a heavy trust problem. I had a very heavy issue with trusting myself, trusting my own judgment, trusting in my own confidence, in my own abilities, even though everybody around me say I'm doing great. My job was doing great. My relationship was good. I never felt it. I never felt like it was that way. I was always trying to, again, be goal oriented. Like this was a thing I had to overcome instead of just accept. And I think that's what really, like, it took me a long time for that to click. And it was that stupid analogy that helped me. I was like, all right, this emotion's coming and it's going to go away. Like, I'm a Marine. I'm ready to like dig a foxhole, you know?
You want to dig in, Preston. And I always say to people, knowing is up here in your head, believing is down here in your heart. And there's a big contrast between the two. So it took time for you to take it from your head into your heart where you truly started to believe it.
Yeah, I literally just the best way to put it is it was just practice, like not believing in the practice, but still doing it anyways. It was that kind of situation where I just had to do it, and I just had to trust that this guy that I'm paying money to and seeing every 2 weeks was right, and I eventually had enough confidence to start trying it, and it ended up working. And I, over time, and I still have to practice it. There's still good days and bad days. The good news is now I trust the fact that the good days will come if it's bad, and I also know that if you have good days, you're gonna have bad days, and those two are simultaneously going to happen, and you just have to roll with it. And just know that it's going to get better. I think the hope came back, and I think that's the most important aspect. I had no hope, and or felt like there was no hope. Even if I'm doing all the right things in life, you're never going to be happy with the goal you achieve if you have no hope that you're going to reach it, and you're never going to be satisfied. Another thing I struggled with being in survival mode for so long. I struggled with the now. I never was able to slow down. It's one of the big things of therapy I had to overcome was that I was never anxious about the past, or I was depressed about the past, but never to the point of true depression. And I was always anxious about my next step, and I never stayed. What are you doing right now? I literally, like, this is going to sound really stupid, but I would literally sit there at my desk and be like, I am typing on a keyboard right now. I am going to click my mouse. Like in my head, I am going to pick up this drink. I am going to put down this drink. Practicing, what are you doing right now? And just over and over. But a good thing is, I'm a Marine. I like cadence. Let's just keep doing it. So I don't mind the
Preston,
work.
you're so right, Preston. Hope is what anchors the soul.
Mm-hmm.
When we don't have hope, we run into some pretty big problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty big issues. Preston, how big was forgiveness for you in this whole healing journey with everything that had happened, the abandonment, the confusion, the hurt, the pain, the rejection? When it came to your dad, when it came to you becoming the person that you desired to become, again, birthed out of that conviction that you knew who you didn't want to be.
Yep.
How big of a deal was forgiveness for you?
Actually, this is going to sound counterintuitive, but it wasn't really big. I know this sounds weird. And for listeners out there, they probably have a much different experience, but I knew that I was just in survival mode. It was very clear as day. It was always been in the forefront of my mind that I'm in survival mode. So I never forgave myself for having to be in that situation, or forgave my mother for putting me in that situation, or forgave my father, I just hit a reset button, just like when I was doing cocaine and I just like, time to go. I think it was just a more of a mental reset that helped me. And I don't know if this is the correct way to do it or not. It works for me, and I've been able to deal with all my emotions. But when I think of my dad, it doesn't bring me anger. It's just like, that was a chapter, it's gone, moving on. And I don't have to forgive that person for the way he acted. I know exactly who he is, but I don't also have to think about him, and I don't have to deal with him. And that, to me, works, because for me, I think it might be a very long time before I could truly forgive that person for what he's done. But at the same time, it's a blessing to not have to feel the burden anymore of having to box who this person is. He's done what he's done. He is who he is. There's no changing him. This is my life now, so I can hit the reset button safely, and I can say, that was a chapter that is gone. Here is my new life now. The now is the most important, and my future plans with what I want to do with life, and I can enjoy those moments. Same thing with my mom. I logically understand the reasons that things happened, and she did the best she could, and we leave it at that, because I learned very on that I can remember things forever. So I have to, instead of being able to forgive it, I have to just not forget it. I have to accept it, is the word. And I think when my therapist heard me say that for the first time, I was like, no, you're supposed to forgive them. It's like, sure, but this is kind of my forgiveness. This is my way of being like, you did what you did the best you could. We're here now, and we can move forward, right? Does that make sense? And that's a weird way of thinking about it. Maybe that's just how my brain works, but that's just that's what helped me to process all of this stuff. I'm able to accept myself for what I did, who I was, what my parents are, what my friends were, what my situations were. They're just in the path. They're gone. The waves have already receded. They're never to be born again. So one more step. It's like a fresh outlook on life, and I think that's been very important. That's been very helpful. I think that's been the thing that's pushed me forward, especially with hope. That's driven a lot of hope.
Good for you, Preston. Good for you. And I say this all the time, and I think you would concur. There's no way you will get the closure that you're looking for, the peace that you're looking for. You'll never be
Yes.
able to reconcile anything until you get honest.
Yeah.
We have to get honest with ourselves and be truth tellers to ourselves, or we'll never ever we'll stay stuck for life. People stay stuck for life because they simply won't get honest with themselves.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's so easy to live in denial. Oh my God. Oh, it's
Yeah,
so easy.
yeah.
It's so easy. It's just like, oh, it's somebody else's fault, or it's something else's issue, or it's this situation that happened, or it's like, no, you were there. You know what you did, and you can. I called it my logical side of the brain. So this might help listeners, but my brain is very logical. So I had this running joke, and I look back now, it sounds so stupid, but how I would explain this to my therapist is like, hey, I hear you. I should feel this first. My brain is like faster than my heart, man. It automatically jumps ahead to the terrible feelings and the terrible thoughts immediately before I have a chance to even feel it. Before the next emotion happens, my brain is taken over, man. Like, I can't outrun it. Like, what am I doing? It's like, stop outrunning it, man. You know?
Preston, I want to thank you for your time today. It's just such an excellent story you have. But tell us what you're doing now. What are you up
Yeah.
to?
So I actually run my own business. Been running it now for 7 years. I'm now a virtual stream production. I do exactly what I like to do. I get to make my own schedule. I prioritize the things I want to prioritize. I get to pick my kids up. I get to see them off to school every day. I get to cook good food. I choose the friends that I want to have, and I continue along both professionally, but also trying to build really good relationships with all my friends, because I feel like I can do it for the first time. So I'm just moving with it, and I still day by day, but at least I have plans for the future. So there's it's always good.
That's fantastic. Awesome. Preston, thanks for your time. It's good seeing you
Absolutely.
as always. And thanks for your vulnerability, transparency, and sharing your story. It's truly inspirational.
I really appreciate it. I can't wait for this podcast episode to air, and hopefully some people get some help. If you're listening in, like, don't outrun the logic brain. Like, trust me, save yourself a lot of money and time. Just like let the water recede, man.
That's right. That's right, Preston. That's right. Thank you, Preston.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.